I want to get technical for a minute and I want to explore the different types of microphone that are out there. It's really important that we understand these properly so that we know exactly when we're miking something up. Is this the right mic for my use? Am I going to have problems with feedback as a result of this? Now, we're covering a lot of this in this whole section about how do I mic up different instruments and different preachers and so on. So I'd encourage you to keep watching these bits for the different nuggets that we're throwing out. But understand that there are two types of microphone, broadly speaking. There is a dynamic mic and a condenser mic. Dynamic mics don't require power, and condenser mics do require power. That's probably the easiest way to categorise the two different variations. When we talk about powering a condenser mic, yes, we can do it from a battery, although that can be quite unreliable. The batteries can wilt over time and we're going to lose signal. The best way to do it, as we've said before, is to use the phantom power coming out of your mixing desk. Don't worry, you're not going to electrocute your band or your musicians when they're using these mics just because they've got power. It doesn't work like that. So let's look at some good examples of the dynamic and the condenser microphones. This is a Shure SM58. It's the obligatory vocal microphone. It's been around for 60 years, so rugged and reliable. It's just brilliant. A dynamic mic like this is fantastic for a sung vocal. To be honest, if I could only ever use one mic and one mic only, this would probably be the best contender for me. The dynamic mic, like a 58, actually doesn't pick up all the subtle nuances of the voice, whereas a condenser mic like this AKG, it would do. But in terms of a sung vocal on a live stage where I've got drums going out, even if I've got a quiet acoustic stage, having a condenser mic like this pencil condenser for my vocal isn't ideal. Really, those subtle nuances that you're going to pick up from a condenser over a dynamic aren't going to be heard in the midst of a big PA, especially when all your congregation are singing along as well. For me, I would far rather go for a dynamic mic like this for my vocals. The reason why I choose this over this for a vocal is because, well, even though this sounds better, it's still going to be picking up everything else that's going on the stage. All these subtle nuances we might get from the instrument we're trying to mic, they're fantastic, but it's also going to be picking up the drums and the guitars and the violins and the flutes and everything else, especially, of course, the monitor sounds that's coming from our foldbacks. Actually, that's going to be a complete killer in terms of good signal quality coming into the PA. Again, the dynamic mic would be much better for a live stage environment. So when is it appropriate to use a condenser? Should we do it at all? Well, yes, there are the right times to do that. You just need to be aware of some of the challenges from using a high sensitivity microphone like a condenser. For example, anything with a small capsule where you need a very discrete position, for example, a mic that you're putting onto a violin or a cello, they're often going to be a condenser mic. We're going to sacrifice the fact that we're going to be picking up other things for the fact that we can get a very small capsule inside or very close to the bowing position and the bridge position of the violins and the cellos. And we're going to get a much better sound as a result. Also, if I'm miking something from a little bit further away, i.e. it's not right in my mouth, then a condenser mic, something like this, is absolutely perfect. It might be a drum overhead, it could be a choir, it could be any number of things where you've got a little bit of distance between you and the source. A condenser mic would also be useful when you've got maybe a band with in-ear monitoring solution in. They're not going to be hearing what's going on around them or the congregation singing because they've got their earplugs in. Yes, they're going to get a great mix, but they're not going to hear what the congregation are giving. So having a condenser mic like this positioned in the church so that they can hear the ambience, the mush, if you want to call it that, of what's going on, that can be a really useful thing. Equally, if you need to send some ambience out for an overflow room or for a recording, then you wouldn't necessarily pull it into the PA. You'd need to make sure the routing on your desk is correct. You're just going to want to route this maybe out to an auxiliary for an overflow. So that's the different types of microphone and how the capsules work: the dynamic, the unpowered, the condenser, the powered. I'd now like to speak about the different types of pickup patterns that the microphones have. Let's take the SM58 as a great example. This has what we call a cardioid pickup pattern. Just like a heart, it comes out the bottom of the mic, comes round to the top, loops back round and back underneath again. It creates this heart shape with the peak going into the capsule from behind. This means that it doesn't really matter how on or off axis you are with the microphone, you're going to get a reasonably consistent sound. Of course, if you go right the way off axis, the sound is going to drop completely. So as I say, this is a cardioid capsule. There is another version of cardioid. Actually, it's a hypercardioid. Some people call it a supercardioid. There are very subtle differences, but let's not get caught up in that. A hypercardioid, supercardioid, pretty much the same thing. In this context, like this Shure KSM9, we get a much more significant pickup from in front and a lot less off the sides, which means that when you're positioning the mic, you've got to sing straight down the throat of the microphone. If you even start to go slightly off axis, you're going to lose volume. But the sound quality as a result is so much better if you're using it properly. One thing to be really aware of with a hypercardioid microphone is to achieve this reduction from the sides, there's a lobe created out the back of the microphone. Now again, I know we've spoken about this elsewhere in the miking up section of the DVD, so I'm not going to go over old ground, but just be really aware of it. For example, if you've got reflection from a music stand or a lectern, or if you've got monitors down on the floor, they're going to pick up that lobe and you're going to just give yourself massive feedback problems in the PA system. The third most commonly found capsule in a church is the omnidirectional capsule. Now, as the name suggests, it's just like God. It's going to hear you wherever you are, okay? So it doesn't matter which direction you're talking into the microphone from, it's going to pick you up at a consistent sound all the way around. Now, you need to be really aware that, yes, an omnidirectional capsule is very forgiving about its positioning, certainly in relation to, in this case, the headset mic to the preacher's mouth. But because it is omnidirectional, it's going to be picking up sound from everywhere, from all around. So you need to be really careful. You cannot use one of these, an omnidirectional capsule, when you've got live monitors coming straight back at you. It's just going to feed back. You're going to get absolutely no volume out of it before you get feedback. There are other capsule types out there, I'm going to give you that. Figure 8 would be an instant one that springs to mind. To be honest, the three main ones that we've spoken about, cardioid, hypercardioid and omnidirectional, are the most commonly used ones in a church. Everything else really is so specific to a very unique application that it's just not worth exploring in our live PA environments of the church.